Is there anything in this world that remains unchanged forever? We wish for everything to last, yet time keeps flowing, and all things continue to change. This is the nature of impermanence, one of the most important truths taught by the Buddha. The Buddha taught that no one is born a Buddha, nor is anyone destined to remain a sinner forever. Everyone has the potential to cultivate themselves and attain enlightenment if they follow the right path. The story of Kesaputta city in the Buddha's teachings. The story of the Buddha in Kesaputta city is found in the Kalama-sutta, which belongs to the Anguttara Nikaya, AN 3.65. This is one of the most well-known suttas in Buddhism, because in it, the Buddha teaches how to discern the truth, encouraging independent thinking instead of blind faith. The story in Kesaputta city. Long ago, there was a city named Kesaputta, nestled among lush green mountains. It was home to the Kalama people and was well known for attracting many spiritual teachers. Each teacher proclaimed their own doctrine as the ultimate truth while dismissing the teachings of others as false. The people of Kesaputta were confused. They did not know who was right, who was wrong, or whom they should trust. One day, a rumor spread that the Buddha and his disciples were passing through the region. Having heard of his great wisdom and enlightenment, the people of Kesaputta eagerly gathered to meet him. A representative stepped forward, respectfully joined his palms, and asked, "Venerable Gautama, many teachers have come here, each teaching different things. They all claim that their doctrine is the absolute truth, while others are wrong. We do not know whom to believe. Please, Master, guide us." Hearing this, the Buddha smiled kindly and said, "O Kalamas, your doubt is understandable. In a world filled with different teachings, how can one immediately believe anything? But O Kalamas, there are certain things you should not accept blindly." Then the Buddha patiently explained, "Do not believe something just because it is an ancient tradition." AN 3.65. Do not believe something just because many people accept it. Do not believe something just because it is written in scriptures. Do not believe something just because it comes from a famous teacher. Do not believe something just because it seems logical. Do not believe something just because it feels pleasant or comforting. Do not believe something just because it is said to be from a holy person or a divine being. The people of Kesaputta listened in amazement. One of them asked, "Then, Master, how should we know what is true?" The Buddha gently replied, "O Kalamas, examine for yourselves. If something, when practiced, leads to greed, hatred, delusion, and harm to oneself and others, then abandon it. But if something leads to compassion, wisdom, peace, and the betterment of life, then accept and practice it." The people of Kesaputta were overjoyed. They realized that truth is not found in mere words, but in one's own direct experience. From that day forward, they no longer followed teachings blindly, but examined everything through wisdom and compassion. Lessons from the story. Do not believe blindly, even if it is an ancient tradition or the words of a famous teacher. Truth should be tested in real life, not just accepted based on logic or scriptures. Examine the consequences of an action. If it leads to suffering, avoid it. If it leads to happiness, cultivate it. This is the spirit of independent inquiry and self-verification in Buddhism as taught by the Buddha in the Kalama-sutta and 3.65. Of King Pasenadi and Queen Malika. The story of King Pasenadi and Queen Malika is found in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Threes, Malika chapter. It is one of the well-known stories about human understanding of happiness and karma. The story. Who do we love the most? 1. The king and the question of love. During the time of the Buddha, in the capital city of Savatthi, there was a powerful and intelligent king of Kosala named Pasenadi. Despite his power, he often pondered the complexities of life. One evening, while strolling in the royal garden with Queen Malika, King Pasenadi suddenly asked, "My queen, whom do you love the most in this world?" Queen Malika, a wise and perceptive woman, smiled and replied, "Your Majesty, I have thought carefully about this. Among all the people in the world, I find that there is no one I love more than myself." The king was momentarily surprised. He had expected the queen to say that she loved him above all else. Her answer made him reflect deeply. He then wondered, Could this be true for everyone? Does each person love themselves the most? 2. Seeking the Buddha's wisdom. With this question in mind, the next morning, King Pasenadi went to Jetavana Monastery, where the Buddha was residing. After paying his respects, the king recounted his conversation with Queen Malika and asked, "Venerable Sir, is it true that everyone loves themselves the most?" The Buddha, with a gentle smile, replied, "Great king, not only Queen Malika, but all beings cherish themselves above all. Knowing this, one should understand that no one wishes to be harmed. If one realizes this, then one should refrain from harming others, just as one should not harm oneself." Then, the Buddha recited a verse, "Oneself is most dear to oneself, thus one should not harm another." Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Threes, Malika Chapter 3. A lesson in life. Hearing this, King Pasenadi was enlightened. He realized that since everyone loves themselves to live in peace, one must treat others with compassion. Causing harm to others is like harming oneself in the cycle of karma. From that day on, King Pasenadi became more compassionate and kind, treating his subjects with goodwill and living a more meaningful life in the wisdom of the Buddha's teachings. Philosophical meaning in Buddhism. 1. Self-love and compassion. Since everyone loves themselves, to attain peace, one should avoid harming others. 2. Karma and reflection. When we do good for others, we are also planting good seeds for ourselves. 3. Wisdom in life. Understanding human nature helps us interact with others wisely, rather than with unrealistic expectations or resentment. Gotami and the mustard seed. The story of Kisagotami and the mustard seed is found in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Dhammapada, and other Theravada Buddhist scriptures. It is a deeply moving Buddhist tale that teaches about impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and the importance of letting go of attachment. The mustard seed of impermanence. Long ago, in a prosperous city in India, there was a young woman named Kisagotami. Born into a poor family, she was often looked down upon. However, after marrying a wealthy merchant and giving birth to a son, she believed she had finally found happiness and fulfillment. But one day, tragedy struck. Her beloved child suddenly passed away. Overcome with grief, she could not accept reality. Holding her child's lifeless body, she wandered the city, desperately begging for help. Yet everyone she met only looked at her with sorrowful eyes. An elderly villager, moved by compassion, told her, "Only the Buddha can help you." Clinging to this hope, Kisagotami carried her child to the Buddha and pleaded, "Venerable Sir, please bring my child back to life." The Buddha gently replied, "Go into the city and find a household where no one has ever died. From them, bring me a handful of mustard seeds. If you can find such a house, I will save your child." Anguttara Nikaya 367. With renewed hope, Kisagotami eagerly set out on her quest. She knocked on door after door, asking for mustard seeds. Every family was willing to give them to her, but when she asked if anyone in their household had ever died, they all shook their heads sadly. In our home, we have lost grandparents, parents, siblings, or children. As she continued searching, she slowly realized that death spares no one. This painful truth began to awaken her understanding. Returning to the Buddha, she gently placed her child's body on the ground and said, "Venerable Sir, I understand now. No one can escape impermanence. I am ready to let go and seek the path to liberation." The Buddha looked at her with deep compassion and taught, "Fools lament, saying, 'My child, my husband,' but who can hold on to them forever? Those with wisdom see that all things are fleeting, like a lamp in the wind." Dhammapada 287. Kisagotami then ordained as a nun and, through dedicated practice, soon attained arahantship, the highest state of enlightenment. Buddhist teachings in the story. 1. Impermanence, anicca. Everything in life is subject to change. Nothing can be held onto forever. Anguttara Nikaya 3.67. 2. Suffering, dukkha. Attachment to impermanent things leads to suffering. Dhammapada 287. 3. Letting go, anatta. Only by understanding impermanence can one release suffering and attain liberation. Majjhima Nikaya 22. The story of the mustard seed of impermanence is a profound lesson in life, guiding us to awaken to the truth of birth and death, and to free ourselves from attachment. The story of the leaves in the Buddha's hand. The story of the leaves in the Buddha's hand originates from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 56, section 31 of the Pali Canon. The story of the leaves in the Buddha's hand. On a serene morning, as the golden sunlight filtered through the dense foliage of the Kosambi forest, the Buddha and his monks were walking along their path of teaching and enlightenment. The melodious songs of birds echoed through the trees, and the pure atmosphere carried the breath of nature. The monks reverently followed behind the Buddha, attentively listening to his teachings. After walking for a while, the Buddha suddenly stopped beneath an ancient tree, where fallen golden leaves blanketed the ground. He gently bent down, picked up a handful of dry leaves, then turned to his disciples and asked, "Monks, what do you think? Are the leaves in my hand more numerous, or are the leaves in the entire forest greater in number?" The monks respectfully replied, "Venerable Lord, the leaves in your hand are very few, while the leaves in the forest are countless." The Buddha smiled, his compassionate eyes gazing at his disciples as he slowly explained, "Likewise, the things that I know are as vast as the leaves in the forest, but what I teach you is only as much as the leaves in my hand." The monks listened intently, their minds filled with curiosity. One of them humbly asked, "Venerable Lord, why do you not teach us everything that you know?" The Buddha gently replied, "Monks, not everything I know is necessary for liberation. What I teach you are the things that are useful, the things that lead to enlightenment and the cessation of suffering. Just like a traveler crossing the desert, they cannot carry everything they desire and urdi, but they must take only enough water and provisions to complete their journey. If they try to carry unnecessary things, they will exhaust themselves and fail to reach their destination. Similarly, in this world, there are countless things one can learn, but not all of them lead to enlightenment. If you merely seek knowledge without practicing the Dharma correctly, you will be like a traveler lost in the forest, unable to find the way out." The monks bowed their heads in deep reflection. Another monk joined his palms and respectfully asked, "Venerable Lord, how can we choose the right path to become lost in the forest of ignorance?" The Buddha, with his infinite compassion, answered, "Monks, examine carefully what I teach. If something helps you eliminate greed, hatred, and delusion, if it purifies the mind, brings peace, and leads to liberation, then that is what is worth learning and practicing. On the other hand, if something only entangles your mind, causes attachment, and leads you away from the path of liberation, then it is not worth pursuing." He paused for a moment, then continued, "Just like a goldsmith who finds a raw piece of metal, they do not immediately use it, but must first melt it down and remove its impurities until only pure gold remains. Likewise, a true practitioner must discern and cultivate the essential teachings so their mind does not become entangled in unnecessary matters." Hearing this, the monks felt as if a light had shone in the darkness. They realized that the most important thing was not to know everything, but to know what is necessary for liberation. They bowed to the Buddha with deep gratitude, vowing to diligently practice his precious teachings. From then on, the monks no longer worried about unnecessary knowledge, but instead focused on practicing the true Dharma, gradually progressing on the path to enlightenment and liberation. The philosophical meaning in Buddhism. This story highlights a crucial principle in Buddhism, focusing on what is essential. The Buddha did not teach everything he knew, but only imparted the teachings that would help people attain liberation from suffering. In life, people often become consumed by the pursuit of excessive knowledge, forgetting the ultimate goal of peace and liberation. Learning much is not as important as learning the right things. Knowing many things is not as valuable as knowing what is sufficient. Like a traveler in the desert, if they carry too much unnecessary baggage, they will collapse before reaching their destination. But if they take only what is essential, they will have enough strength to complete the journey. The Buddha's teachings are not only meant for monks, but are also relevant to all of us in modern life. In today's era of overwhelming information, people are easily caught up in an endless cycle of knowledge seeking. However, the most important thing is to select what is truly valuable, guiding us toward a peaceful and meaningful life. The story of the four signs in a dream. The story of the four signs in a dream may relate to certain Buddhist scriptures that describe symbolic dreams or omens, especially in Mahayana sutras and the Jataka tales, stories of the Buddha's past lives. Jataka tales contain numerous dreams with predictive meanings. Mahaparinirvana Sutra records dreams related to the Buddha's passing into nirvana. Samyukta Agama Sutra mentions dreams that foreshadow significant events. The four signs in a dream. One day, while the Buddha was residing at Jetavana Monastery with his disciples, he recounted a strange dream he had seen the night before. In this dream, four distinct images appeared before him, each carrying a profound message about the impermanent nature of all things. The Buddha said, "I saw a magnificent tower standing tall, a symbol of strength and eternity. But suddenly, it shook violently and collapsed into pieces. I saw a great tree with lush foliage, its roots deeply embedded in the earth. It had withstood many seasons, providing shelter to countless beings, yet a powerful wind swept through, breaking its trunk and uprooting it completely. I saw a vast river, its rushing waters carrying fertile soil to nourish the land. But then, without warning, the water began to recede, the riverbed cracked and dried, leaving behind only a few shimmering puddles under the sun. Finally, I saw a brilliant flame burning brightly, illuminating the entire space. But in an instant, it grew weaker, flickered, and was extinguished, leaving only darkness behind." After the Buddha finished speaking, the disciples remained silent, deeply moved by the mystery and significance of the dream. A monk respectfully asked, "Bhagavan, what does this dream mean? Do these visions foretell an event to come?" The Buddha gently looked at his disciples and calmly explained, "This dream is an omen of the passing of four great teachers. Each of them is a being of extraordinary wisdom who has made great contributions in spreading the Dharma and guiding sentient beings toward enlightenment. But no matter how great they cannot escape the law of impermanence." The Buddha continued, "The collapse of the great tower symbolizes the impending departure of a revered master who was once a firm pillar of the Dharma. The uprooted tree represents another eminent teacher who, despite his deep spiritual cultivation, must still follow the path of impermanence. The drying river signifies the passing of a renowned monk who has used his wisdom to guide many disciples but now approaches the end of his journey. The extinguished flame is an omen of an arahant, one who has attained liberation, preparing to enter final nirvana, parinirvana." Hearing this, the disciples were overcome with emotion. Some monks shed tears, feeling a deep sense of loss, knowing that these great spiritual leaders would soon depart from the world. But the Buddha gently reminded them, "My dear disciples, do not grieve. This is the natural law of all things. No matter how wise or meritorious one may be, no one can escape the cycle of impermanence. Birth, aging, sickness, and death are inevitable. These great teachers have left a profound legacy in the hearts of sentient beings, and their noble deeds will always be remembered. However, the physical body must return to dust. This is an unchangeable truth." The Buddha paused for a moment and then continued, "What truly matters is that you diligently practice the Dharma. Do not cling to things that are fleeting. Take the Dharma as your teacher. Always be mindful of the impermanent nature of the world. Only by understanding this can you let go of attachments, free yourself from suffering, and attain true peace." The Buddha's words awakened the disciples to a deeper truth. They realized that even if great teachers leave, the Dharma remains. As long as they follow the teachings and walk the path correctly, they will no longer fear loss or change. This story of the Buddha's dream serves as a profound lesson on impermanence, anicca, one of the three fundamental marks of existence in Buddhism. It reminds us that nothing lasts forever, and even the most extraordinary beings must eventually pass away. From that moment on, the Buddha's disciples became even more diligent in their practice, maintaining mindfulness and no longer fearing the impermanence of life. Impermanence is not something to fear, but a lesson that teaches us to live more fully. When we accept change, we find peace. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive diligently in your practice. Have you ever reflected on impermanence? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow us for more insights into the Buddha's teachings. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. If you found the content helpful, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss upcoming videos. Let's walk together on the path to peace and enlightenment. Wishing you peace and happiness always.